Hello, welcome back. My name is Ishan, and guess who I'm here with?
Rishi Harani, good to have
Hey,
you. Good to be here today, Zishan, on this amazing webinar here with you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody, wherever you may be joining from.
well, hopefully it's going to be an amazing webinar, but I say it always is because Rishi's here, and when Rishi's here, it's always a good day. Today is going to be a good conversation. It's going to be, again, just like last time, out of my depth of knowledge, out of my scope, everything like that. Rishi's the expert. I just like to ask questions and I like to be involved and mess around a little bit. So, recap for you. Last time, what did we talk about? It was about operational structures, establishing clear exit strategies, and really a question of like, why should founders have an exit? And today we want to talk about from why to when, and maybe a little bit of how. Rishi said to me earlier on in this our conversation, saying, "Look, Z, I don't think we're going to be able to cover everything off." And I was like, "That's okay. We'll just do another webinar." Rishi, thanks for joining me again today, man. I really appreciate it. Did I miss anything from our recap?
No, that's pretty much it. And thank you for having me here today on this webinar. Whatever we miss, I'll make sure that I add it in, so we'll definitely speak about it.
Fantastic. See, always the professional. All right, good. Rishi, so what are the main points that you think we need to cover off when we're talking about when to do an exit strategy for the founders that are listening today?
So for founders who are starting off, not even just listening, starting off, the exit strategy has to be implemented from day one when you incorporate your business. You should always have a vision, a clear roadmap of where you're going to end up when you're eventually going to sell or whether an IPO. Unfortunately, in the UK, in the last, let's say, 5 to 7 years, there hasn't been that many IPOs. For every, let's say, 27 or 28 acquisitions, there has been only one IPO in the UK market, which is a sad state of affairs. You know, as a Brit, like yourself and myself, I do feel a bit sad that, you know, international investors are seeing something in our companies, in our economy that we within our home aren't seeing. So from that perspective, the founders should start looking at it from day one, when to exit, the clear roadmap. Now, some people prefer IPOs, some people prefer exit. It's just that because of the tech valuations that I discussed with you earlier as well, the colossal valuations that we're experiencing in tech, most people are going with the route of acquisitions. So for example, if they start off a company within 5 to 7 years, the company is generating 10, 15, 20, 25 million ARR, they're better off selling within the first 3 to 4, 5, 7 years rather than waiting until to IPO. In the good old days, you know, back in the 80s, early 90s, even the 70s, IPO would be after 15 years, 20 years, with a long process of going for an IPO where businesses were making genuinely good revenue with really good EBITDA margins, but that's not the case these days as well. So a lot of companies are listing before. So from that perspective, yeah, now is the time to start thinking about it.
It's always now.
Why is it now? When you're thinking about it, as you're moving along with the business, just make sure you're following your track.
Okay. Oh, we've lost him. Is he going to come back?
In 5 to 7 years, I want to achieve this much revenue.
Oh.
And sell my company for this much.
You froze for a second there, Rishi. Can you backtrack, say about 10 seconds?
Sure. So I was just saying that if, for example, the valuation should matter right now. If you're thinking about exiting in the next 5 to 7 years, make sure you're following your track. Because if you're not following your track, if you sway away from your track a little bit, that impacts the valuation. Because in that time, there could be some cyclical macroeconomic factors that may be beyond your control. Therefore, you have to manage those risks in such a way that you want to be able to, for example, I just wrote an article on LinkedIn this morning on the consolidation of the telecom sector in Europe. America experienced that 10 to 15 years ago. So if you want to be into telecoms business, Europe is the time, Europe is the place right now. If you're an American company focusing on growth within America, forget it. So therefore, you have to start expanding into different. So you're still following your track. You're just basically factoring in everything else around you, and that's definitely going to impact your valuation. So therefore, always have that exit strategy in your mind as you're moving along.
Very nice. So look, I'm going to echo that a little bit as well, guys. So The other day, I was at an event. I was talking to a room of founders, and one thing that came up was, what is your exit strategy? How are you going to exit your business? Which effectively means to some investors, if we're going to invest in your business, how am I going to get that money back? Are you going to do an IPO? Are you going to get a merger out? Are you going to get acquired? What is the exit strategy? And that's what Rishi's saying here today. And I echo that from an investor's perspective as well, that if you are building a business, you are a founder starting out today, but let's say, for example, maybe you're 2 years in or 3 years in, and you're starting to think about, how am I going to cash out? You need to have this structure in place in advance, because if you don't, you're always going to be behind the curve. And with someone like Rishi, who comes in and says, look, I've got organizations that have built from day one how to exit, when to exit. They've got everything in planned out. Now, of course, not every plan goes exactly to the way it's supposed to be, but at least you have a methodology and a structure which an investor can jump on board with. And I'm sure Rishi will be able to support this and echo this from an M&A perspective as well, right?
Right. That's pretty much it. Just, jumping on the bandwagon as soon as possible rather than waiting it out, because then someone else will come and take your pie.
Nice. All right. So we know that it should be done now. And we want to sort of stay away from, all of a sudden there's a market opportunity. we want to have a nice controlled environment, because if we don't go down the controlled environment, effectively you make silly decisions and you don't have backup and you don't have things prepared. So a nice timeline, a nice strategy, get the right people on board, work with Rishi, speak to him, and get the advisors on board. So Rishi, I've got a question. In terms of the process, what are some of the pitfalls that founders will face if they suddenly go, right, I've got an opportunity, I've been doing this for 7 years and I want to sell, I want to get out, I want to do an M&A. What's the pitfall? What's the problems that some of the things that people face that you can help them mitigate that risk?
Handshake deals. I'm glad that you asked me this question. So handshake deals, let me elaborate on that. The traditional model in the UK has been selling your company to your mate over a pint in the pub. Those are handshake deals. Unfortunately,
I love that you say it's a pint in a pub.
The way Zishan, it happens is that because of these handshake deals, you forgo due diligence, which is the most important key element in an M&A process, the due diligence, DD aspect of it. So when you're conducting an M&A just within your company, be it either acquisitions or merger or just even expansion, what happens is people forgo the due diligence aspect because it's their mate, it's their friend, and then they have known them for like 15, 20, 25 years. They let go of certain nuances in the balance sheets. There could be some red flags in those balance sheets, which basically impact the valuation and the business as well. So that's number one. The other common pitfalls that I see is not implementing and upgrading with the technology as you move forward. So what I've experienced here with American companies that I'm working with, you could be working with an extremely talented technical founder, but because they're not moving along with the tech aspect and how the world is moving at such a rapid pace, they're letting go of a lot of valuation. They're letting go of what's available, the opportunities available to them, which is impacting their valuation in such a way that, for example, I came across this telecoms company here in America, Legacy Tech. They've been doing this for 30, 35 years, 40 years. That technology is obsolete. Now, they have an existing customer base that they're supplying to, but if someone were to take over that business, that would be a huge red flag for the new owner, because they wouldn't be able to continue with the business, because they wouldn't be able to service those existing client base with the legacy tech, because they wouldn't have the know-how, because that technology doesn't exist anymore. So therefore, upgrading. So that's the common pitfall that I've noticed with a lot of founders, that when they come across something, not doing the due diligence properly, and then structure within the business. So one thing that I've noticed is, especially with Southeast Asian founders, they don't have company policies in place. They don't have structures in place. They just start off a company, couple of mates together, start off a business, go get some contracts, get some revenue, build up the company. But suddenly there's no middle management. that impacts the valuation. That in itself is a couple of million here and there if it's a really good business, or
Really, a
even
couple of
more.
million, because the leadership team or the middle management's not there. So it's a few million, potentially a few million off the
Millions
books.
all the way to few millions. For these are usually problems within small to medium sized businesses, and usually a couple of $1 million here and there. Because what happens is, if the core founders, the C-suite, is not there, there's no one to handle the business. So during an acquisition, if they leave, who's going to handle the business? Who's going to handle the customer base? Therefore, middle management is the key. A lot of companies I come across in UK and America, they don't necessarily have a CFO, for example. They'll have one random accountant who's their CPA or the chartered accountant handling their finances. But accountants aren't trained to optimize their finances the way that a CFA would. So that's a common pitfall I've come across with companies here in America or in the UK. Oh, I just hired my accountant to do my taxes. Yeah, accountant is good to do your taxes, not necessarily to run your company's finances.
Right. I mean, because it sounds like we've got a couple of things here. Be ready in advance, plan and build your organization from day one for that exit point. Fantastic. Then we've got areas which, I mean, like middle management, and then you're talking about CFO structure here. That sounds like something that's extremely critical to me, because that then leads into things like, okay, you've got recurring revenue, great, but then you need clean financials around it. It needs to be structured in a way that is understandable and knowledgeable and easy to read for the investors, for the people who are potentially getting involved with this. So is this actually one of the main core aspects why a strategic buyer of an organization will look at the leadership team and whether or not it's a risk factor or if it's a valuation bonus factor?
So private equity, especially in the US, would look at this more than anything else. Therefore, private equity strategics always pay a bit more compared to private equity. Private equity always pays less because they want to extract all the value out of it for themselves. And those are the number one factors that they will look at is the middle management, the core team, and what would happen to the business once we acquire that business. Would that business be on an automation? So what I mentioned last time as well, if your business is not able to run without yourself, that's not a business. That's just a hobby with a passion. It's a passion that you have, and you just made out a bit of money from that passion. So therefore, it's very critical to have middle management. Now, CFO is not, it's not necessarily just middle management sometimes, but you need someone to be able to optimize your finances. A technical founder would be able to build the technology, but not necessarily sell it. Therefore, the marketing team is very critical. Therefore, the sales team is very critical. But then even the sales team, without the finances being optimized, the biggest issue that I have noticed here in America, especially in certain sectors, as soon as there's a bit of economic uncertainty, the founder or the CEO would start laying off people. That's like error 101 or error 404.
I was just going to say, yeah, like that would be a huge red flag, because if your team is suddenly shrinking and you're losing skills, knowledge, experience of people who've been in the organization, surely anyone who's a buyer or an investor is going to turn around and go, whoa, hold on, what's happening here? Where's all this skill set and knowledge going?
Correct. So you're not cleaning up the finances. You're basically, what you're doing is you're optimizing your cash flow position for that particular moment of time by firing those people. Therefore, what's happening is those job cuts are increasing your cash flow for just a short period of time. So what's happening is you're losing that skill set. Long term, it's having detrimental impacts on your business because you don't have that skill set to develop and further develop the technology that you have built your business on. So I'm just talking from a pure tech perspective. And, like cutting 14, 15,000 jobs, you'll save some revenue, you'll save some money, but you're not necessarily building upon that. You're not focusing on CapEx, which is very critical to grow your business. So therefore, yes, it's very important to cut the jobs, but not necessarily just that won't necessarily help in the valuation.
Let's say, for example, there's like my business, the Master Collective. We're a team. We punch much well above our weight class, because there's only like 6 people in the team plus myself. The majority of our work is done by AI systems, agentic agents that we've actually built ourselves that run in the background, and they do all this additional work that would in the good old days, and I mean good old days, 5 years ago, 10 years, that would have to be done by like, between 50 and 100 people. So we couldn't have even built this business this quickly, this fast to this without this technology. So these sort of, AI integration and work that's actually being brought in, how is that affecting the appetites for buyers at the moment? Is it a plus factor, or is it being seen as this is a potential red flag because it doesn't include humans within the loop? It's actually very, very, very automated.
To run those machines, to run those AI systems, you still need humans. Yes, you don't need as many humans as you did maybe 5 to 7 years ago, but you still need some humans right now. So let's say, as you mentioned, in the past we would have needed 50, now you need about 5 to 7, but you still need those core skilled 5 to 7 individuals. Those 5 to 7 individuals run your programs, will run your machines, run your AI systems. It's not necessarily a red flag for the investor who's acquiring the business, but just having too much of AI is also a red flag in today's date, because the cost per token and utilization per token is what everybody's going after.
So you said token there. Are we now into the realms of crypto?
No, token as in for the tokens that we use when we are conducting AI search. So for example, that is using Claude, for example.
The credits in the background that we're paying for. Right.
Exactly. And I think I mentioned that to you as well, our personal conversations once, that especially during the daytime hours in the US, your token utilization is much higher than in evenings or later. So when I start working in the morning, like 8, 9 a.m. here in Dallas, my tokens are used just like that. But if I were to work at, let's say, 10, 11 p.m. at night, yeah, that's fine. I have plenty of tasks and I can run those tasks in the background. So that's where AI comes in. So so I get asked this question a lot. Will AI cut the jobs? Will that be a detrimental impact on the jobs? I'm going to give you an example. When Excel came back in the day, Excel created more jobs because it brought along more and more functions that you needed more and more humans to use those more and more functions. So same with AI. AI is at a very early stage. AI is just being born. AI will have that whole growth stage for the next 10, 15, 20 years. It's going to bring in so many functions that you need more and more humans to run those. And because those tokens can be sometimes very expensive, it's actually still cheaper. So we've gone around the whole circle of having humans and using humans to code. So there's this company, I won't mention the name, they let go of some staff. Then they realized that AI tokens are costing them more money than humans would. They went ahead and interviewed 2 humans and brought them on a $50,000 each salary. So $100,000 is cheaper than the tokens that they were spending. There's another firm that uses whole 1 year's marketing budget within a couple of weeks on AI tokens.
What? That's insane. A year's marketing budget in a couple of weeks.
Because the marketing staff are just running simple background tasks, just using AI tools. For example, Gemini, you can create posters, which the usual UI UX designer would have done in a couple of, not even a couple of hours, even like let's say 20 minutes.
Sure.
Because of the sheer speed that we have access to such technology, a lot of people are running simple background tasks. A lot of people, especially from Ireland, like classmates of mine, are using ChatGPT as Google.
Are we just saying that people are damn lazy?
People are not just damn lazy. It's just that the access to technology is such now that we humans have stopped thinking. We're not using our
absolutely. Absolutely. There is so much critical thinking that is being pushed out of our own minds. I did a presentation to Shanghai University, actually here in Bishopsgate, just in the room over there. And the conversations that we ultimately went into, these were master students. They were like, how can I use my AI, whichever system they're using, to write my thesis? And it's like, well, hold on, you're supposed to write the thesis, do the research, at least understand it, then write the thesis. But their methodology was, how can I circumvent the rules, get a shortcut to the end, and not have to think about it? With this in mind, if organizations are doing this, I'm not going to talk about students anymore, but if people are going to be doing this and businesses are going to be doing this as well, then how do valuations stack up against this with humans running just basic systems, which eventually you won't even need a human. You're just going to need someone or something that says, I need to go from here to here. Here's a system that does all the critical thinking and the implementation. So where's the valuation of humans within this structure?
Communication. Simple answer. In the next 5 to 10 years, maybe 15 years, people are going to succeed are the ones who are able to communicate effectively. So yes, you'll have your AI tools doing the implementation and the analytical processing. But then when you're going to go sell, AI can only sell so much. Humans still respect humans. So therefore, to get those big contracts, it's the human approach, the communication, being in the rooms, what you do in London, for example, creating those events, having a group of people who are interested in each other and their businesses. So that's where the humans will come in. And also the humans will be the ones who will be programming it as well. So
we still have value in this world. We're still worth something.
Humans will always have value. If any business says to me that it's just an AI run business, it will only survive, let's say, for the first initial years, with 5, 7, 10 years. After that, you'll still need humans when the company scales and expands, because ultimately you're selling to humans. We're the ones using it. Yes, we'll have all these robots and everything, but who's creating all those? Humans. So humans will still have value. So communication is the critical element here. That's where humans will have value.
So you've talked about that a lot now. So in terms of the deal making structure now, obviously at the moment, we're not at a place where an agent or an AI system can buy and sell from another agent. Well, certainly not a company at this stage anyway. So off-market deal making and direct network relationships, I feel like based around what you're saying, they're still extremely critical to getting a good network built and getting that relationship up and running so that you can say, I have a network around me. We can do an off-market deal. And you mentioned a pint in a pub. Maybe it's on a golf course. I don't know. But how does that compare to like a public offering, for example?
So you have to factor into consideration one of the biggest elements is most of the businesses that are selling right now have been incorporated, let's say 10, 15 years in the past. So those businesses who are incorporated or have grown in the last 10, 15, 20 years when there was no element of AI, let alone even internet, for example. So therefore, those founders are still old school founders who are selling their companies with the word of mouth, off market as well, meeting people at events, meeting people at golf courses, so on and so forth. So that's one of the biggest reasons. Next 10, 15, 20 years down the line, yes, there will be certain AI tools who will do the process, selling and buying and selling of businesses, but still humans will be needed for the communication aspect. And then your other question was, sorry, what was your other question?
So we were talking about off-market deal making versus public listings. What's the elements between it? So like, why would you go for an off-market deal versus going for like a public listing?
So off-market will give you a better valuation and a better deal. Usually you can negotiate from your perspective. You have the leverage of negotiating. So if you were to go for an off-market deal, the founder is seeking, the seller is seeking, let's say $8 million or $10 million, you can offer them 7, 7.5. Whereas if it's a public offering, if it's available to everybody, the element of negotiation just diminishes severely because there's just so many players going after this. So it's creating a sense of competition. That competition is reducing the value that you can add in terms of acquiring that particular asset or company or something like that. So from that perspective, off markets will always have more valuation. However, so I was on LinkedIn the other day, and then there's someone who posted that most of the value that the VCs or private equity is extracting now is at the early stages, before the company even sells or before the company goes public. But then those are the ones who are taking the majority of the risk as well. So when a company these days is going IPO, most of the risk has been absorbed by everybody who's went in from day one up until the day of IPO. So therefore, they have to be rewarded accordingly because the risk to reward ratio is proportional from that perspective. And then when companies are going IPO, that's when the individual retail investors are coming in and just basically, investing in investing £5 to make £6. So from that perspective, off markets will always have better valuation for the people who are investing at the early stage. And off markets will always be good. So even as I mentioned, the companies don't necessarily go all the way to the IPO stage. They get acquired even at Series B, Series C sometimes. That's what off market valuations create a lot of value.
Right. Understood. Understood. That's really interesting. That's fascinating. Because the way the media portrays it, it's like IPO is the gold standard. I'm going to do a public listing and it's going to be huge. But you're completely debunking that theory, I suppose, because it is a theory to me. I'm not the expert here. You are. So I might need to change how I'm going to exit out of Master Collective.
It depends what you need. For example, if IPO, most of the big public listed companies in the UK are all IPO companies. They went public many, many years ago. It depends. If you're a founder that is happy with exiting a business and starting something new, there's a lot of serial entrepreneurs who create a business, sell the business, start something new, then IPO is never for you. But if you want to create a legacy, if you are the one who wants to grow and pass on the business to your kids as inheritance and legacy, then IPO is the route for you because you want that business to succeed and grow even more. That's when you start listing your companies. So all these big companies, such as Metas and Apples and all them, the public listed companies for that particular reason, because those companies are just constantly growing. Everybody has their own exit strategy, and everybody has their own, I guess, self-actualization needs. Some people are happy with 100 million. Some people aren't even happy with 100 billion.
What are you happy with?
I'll be happy with 100 million.
It's a lot of money. That is a lot of money.
It's not about that's a lot of money. It's not just about the money sometimes, Zishan. What happens is ultimately I like growing businesses, exiting and then moving away. But I like helping founders to give them the knowledge that's imparted on me, to pass it on and help them grow and get the best valuation, what they need. So money, you can only have so many cars. You can only have so many houses. I was again reading, philosophy is such a great thing. Where I was reading, someone posted that why would you even have a summer house when you have Airbnbs now? Because it's just your house with furniture. Like Airbnb does the same thing. What your farmhouse would have done in the past, like a summer house, somewhere by the beach or something. So, but it depends. If you have wealth, you want to divest your wealth, then of course that's where you like
Fair
start.
enough. So
everybody has their own.
Wrap up. As a founder, when you start your business, Rishi has said, build your operational legal foundations today. Don't wait until you're thinking, I now need to sell, because it's going to be a lot of work, immense amounts of cost, and you're going to end up restructuring the business. You don't want to be hiring and firing people right before, because it doesn't look good to the investors and to the buyers. So get started today. Is that right, Rishi? Have I summed that up enough?
No, that's pretty much it. Start today. Build up on your business. Hire the right people from day one. Hiring is the most difficult element in running a business, but have the right set of people in your business who are going to help you grow your business. Do not wait until the day after tomorrow. Do it now.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Okay. So guys, we're going to wrap this up because I know people on LinkedIn are always really, really busy. Thank you for joining us. Please connect with Rishi. He's tagged into this event somewhere around us, somewhere, depends on your mobile device or you're on a laptop. Rishi, your website, mergify.vc, is that correct? Did I get it right?
Yes, that is correct.
Guys, go check it out. Have a look at it. Honestly, Rishi is a fountain of knowledge, as you can see. He's got so much knowledge and experience here. And you can also join in with me and Rishi. We're in the Master Collective ecosystem. We've got a little WhatsApp community where Rishi is always in there sharing knowledge and information. I'll put the link in the chat for our LinkedIn structure for everyone. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Rishi, as always, thank you so much, my friend.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.